Well, you coming?
Where?
Why, to the North Pole, of course. This is the Polar Express!
You know, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Polar Express is my favorite movie of all time. Shocker, I know. I won't deny that the film has gotten some criticism over the past 20 years since its release, but you gotta admire how it was able to take a 30-page long children's book and turn it into a full-fledged film with full-fledged characters. Not to mention the animation for this 2004 film is stunning. My first ever model train was Lionel's Polar Express, so without it, I may not even be in this hobby. And so using the skills I've learned with my other projects, I wanted to give the proper treatment to this engine that started it all for me. Here is how I built my model of the Polar Express. As we all know, the Polar Express is a
Baldwin 284 S3 class Berkshire type steam locomotive.
So of course, my model would be based off this type. Now of course there's Lionel's HO model of the Polar Express.
Who in the
I got this model as a Christmas gift back when it first came out in 2016, and at that time it was really cool, especially since it was Lionel's first HO release in over a decade. There are some things I like about it. I think the Line Chief system is a lot of fun and the lighting is really good, better than anything I've seen. It even casts shadows on the walls. But the thing just has no detail, not to mention it constantly derails thanks to the flangeless middle drivers. So I wanted to use a model that would fix all that and then some. There was Rossi's Berkshire, which I already own, but these models are too old and inaccurate for my liking. There was also Bachmann, which I did end up choosing my first time around, and is now owned by a friend. MTH was an option as well, though getting custom sounds in this thing would be a pain. Not to mention, I don't want to tear up a $500 model. These things are my babies, I just can't. So I ended up settling on a Walthers Proto 2000 model, which is highly detailed and runs very well. I bought a custom lettered Santa Fe one and got to work. First thing was to directly compare the CGI film model with the N1 Berkshire. Of course, two of Polar Express's defining features are the sunken headlight and the large protruding pilot, very similar to Erie's S3 Berkshire.
Baldwin 284 S3 class Berkshire type steam locomotive.
Huh, guess he wasn't too far off. Of course, there are some other small details such as the whistle placement, but overall, the locomotive still maintains the basic shape and details of an N1. For these mods, my resin printer would be my biggest tool. Now, of course, to 3D print something, you need a file, and I am not the best CAD designer. Literally, most of my 3D print work is designed by friends. So, we all know that one Polar Express game on the GameCube, right?
Well, they certainly won't believe in Santa if they never reach the North Pole. And they won't reach the North Pole if they don't have tickets for the Polar Express.
Well, I actually ended up finding the file for the engine online and using it for my prints.
Well,
to be fair, I did heavily modify these files. Made them hydropoly, added riveting, color box on the pilot, etc. Is it perfect? No. But until I get something better, this will do nicely. Once everything was printed out, I went on to priming and painting. Also painted the wheels black to not have that silver wheel syndrome that the Lionel model has. The custom decals were removed by simply using packing tape. Thankfully, changing out the smoke box door was simple. Simply pop the old one out and pop the new one in. The pilot though was a little more complicated as I had to remove the whole piece and Dremel off the old plow in order to fit the new one on. I gotta say though, seeing her without a pilot was very interesting. Also noticed these little box things on the pilot as well and wasn't too sure what to do about them. For whatever reason, they're present on the poster and even some promotional art, but not the actual film model. Just a U-shaped handrail takes its place. It did make me think though, is the model in the film poster an earlier version of the locomotive? I mean, the pilot's completely different, rivet detail is lacking, and of course those little box posts. It's possible they were removed to let the characters have some more space to move on the engine. Makes you wonder. Anyways, it was on to adding more details such as a metal whistle from CalScale, cab figures, a Rocolode, and Polar Express lettering on the tender. A few touch-ups here and there, and Polar Express was pretty much done. Though even with these cosmetic changes, there was still a few more things that she needed to really bring her to life. If any of you are familiar with my projects, you know how much I love installing DCC. Honestly, this is probably the most challenging DCC install I've yet to do. Not as challenging as MTH's Berkshire counterparts, but it's up there. Luckily, Proto 2000 was kind enough to make this model DCC ready, so that saved me a lot of trouble. For my decoder, I used a lock sound 8-pin, which would be more than capable of doing what I wanted. The manual stated that to convert the model DCC, the LEDs would need to be replaced with ones that would work with the higher AC voltage. Very glad I noticed this. Always read the manual, folks. This ended up working out well in the end, as the new LEDs were much brighter and had a warm white glow to them, very similar to how the locomotive appears in the movie. Though I did run into a bit of an issue with this process. When running, the headlight would always remain on. No matter how many times I pressed F0, it wouldn't shut off. Locomotive would also run at top speed at speed step 1. Turns out a bit of bare wire was touching one of the motor contacts. Thankfully, this was a simple fix with some heat shrink and electrical tape. Next up was adding the sound, which is by far the most fun part of any install. EEG decoders allow you to program any audio file you want. This works super well on my Thomas models, so I figured it'd work well on Polar Express too. I could have used TCS or soundtracks or something like that, but I thought actual movie sounds would give her the whole treatment. I won't be diving into the whole process of sound programming, as it's a pretty lengthy one, just hours of importing and exporting audio. Also wanted to try using a high bass speaker for the first time, as this model will be running mostly at Christmas shows. I wanted her to be heard. What's the point of adding sound if you can't hear it, right? Oh yeah, I should mention, 90% of the audio in this locomotive is ripped directly from the film. Chuffing. Whistle. Voice lines.
All aboard! This is the Polar Express!
And even music are all from the film, with just a few exceptions like the bell, which is from Pierre Marquette number 1225. Also, while programming the music, I got a whole new appreciation for the film's soundtrack, like oh, so damn good! But apparently DCC and sound just wasn't enough for me. Oh no. I needed smoke.
Smoke.
In years past, I had ran my MTH 1225 as these events. As you know, the Lionel one is, the Lionel one. It doesn't run very good. And one thing I noticed is how much people loved the smoke.
Smoke.
Sure, you get museum employees freaking out thinking something's burning in the other room, but it's all in good fun. Now, the smoke unit in these Berks are of course fan driven, and as of now, HO ESG decoders aren't capable of handling full fan driven units, as far as I know. So I settled for a Sooth. These units come quite small, making it easy to install in HO locomotives. Only problem was, I would have to Dremel some of the gearbox in order for it to fit. There's also a screw inside of the funnel that holds the body on, making this even more difficult. Using a Dremel bit, I removed the small part of the gearbox and made the funnel larger with a 4.5mm drill bit to fit the smoke unit. I was incredibly nervous during this since I didn't want to damage the body, but thankfully it came out smoothly.
Are you smoking yet?
But the trouble didn't stop there. I then had to figure out how to wire the smoke unit from the locomotive to the tender. It's just a plug. I don't know why I was stressing about it. It's just 2 wires. It's just a plug. After all that, she was done. All that was left was to stretch her wheels. And that's about it for my model of the Polar Express. A somewhat simple yet challenging project. A film accurate model of this engine has been something I've wanted for years, ever since I got my first setback all the way in 2008. And now that I finally have one, let alone made it myself, is a great feeling. I'm sure most of you are wondering though, how does she perform? And honestly, pretty great. The model ran 8 hours in a row during the museum's Polar Express event. 9 nights and over 30 hours of straight running with no issues is pretty good in my book. I tried to give a poor engine a rest every now and then, but just about every time she'd go on a siding, someone would ask to see her groan. Seeing the smiles from kids, adults alike as the whistle sounded and the music played makes this hobby so worth it, and I hope it brought smiles to all of you watching. And you know, no matter what you celebrate, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or even if you don't celebrate at all, I still wish you all a very happy holiday season. Oh, and before you click off, 2 more things. If you'd like to make your own Polar Express models, I've put the files for the 3D printable pilot and smokebox in Google Drive for free use. Think of it as my Christmas gift from me to you all. Secondly, the LBSC Thomas, Jack's Trains, Blue Truck, and others and I will be attending the Florida Rail Fair on January 13th and 14th in DeLand, Florida. We will have a Thomas themed display with an N-scale layout, HL scale engines, and over a dozen Gauge 1 prop replicas. Be sure to stop by if you're in the area, and I hope to see you there. Merry Christmas, and I hope to see you all in the next one.